Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my session on fixing the content supply chain with SitecoreAI. Every enterprise I've ever worked with has the same problems. You know, the CMS works or doesn't, the DAM works or doesn't, the PIM works or doesn't. But, you know, while they work most of the time, content doesn't move. It can get stuck between tools, between teams, between the person who owns the brief and the person who hits the publish button. So today I want to show you what happens, what it looks like on the ground when fixing what it looks like when you have the right orchestration layer underneath it. Okay. So let's start off. I'll say a bit on who I am. My name's Tim Marsh. I'm a senior technical consultant at EPAM Systems. I've been working with EPAM for nearly 14 years. I'm a 4-time MVP. I will say it's really nice to see other MVPs wearing their tops and all their stuff today, so great. I did think I might be the only one, but I'm glad. And also co-head of EPAM's CMS and DXP practice across EMEA. This is actually my third SUGCON as a speaker, and I'm really excited to be here again sharing stories. My focus is on content architecture, DXP strategy, DAM, pretty much anything where EPAM wants to mobilise me. And that's exactly what I'm talking about today, is about content. So let's get into it. So here's the thing I want you to hold on to for the next up to 40 minutes. Enterprise content delivery rarely fails because of the CMS or a single tool. Usually them tools are fine. It fails because of everything around it. The handoffs, the gaps in between the tools, the workflows that exist in someone's inbox and not actually in a tool. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So my session is anonymous. However, I'm going to introduce you to Vantara Group, who are a fiction company I've made up for today. But if you work in the enterprise content space, you should recognise the problems pretty quickly. All right. They produce and sell speciality industrial and safety products. So PPE or personal protective equipment, lab consumables, compliance equipment, pretty much anything for that sort of industry. They're across 34 markets, thousands of employees, billions in revenue. Regional hubs in London, Frankfurt, Cologne, Singapore, Sao Paulo. Minimum of 6 languages for any global campaign. However, that will go up to 14 for full coverage. And they have to have regulatory compliant copy per market. So what's claimable in Germany will not be claimable in the US. So this is where it's all about simple content operations here. And these are the kind of organisation that when they get it wrong, they get fined a lot of money. And here are the 3 people that make it work. So I'll try to. So Maya is our content ops manager. Her job is the strategy. She does the content production, trying to meet the impossible deadlines that everyone gives her. Her actual Monday is multiple follow-up emails from the weekend, working out why the CMS won't publish and wondering who decided Optimizely was a good CMS. Dan is your developer and architect, the one who didn't build all the integrations, doesn't own the integrations because the CTO does, but somehow is the only person that can fix the integrations. He's been with Vantara for about 10 years, and he remembers Sitecore XP as that wonderful platform that used to work. And then we have Rachel, who's our VP of Digital. So she's accountable for the content velocity. She has no real visibility over it though, so she hasn't got a clue what's going on with the business. Rachel has big aspirations for Vantara and currently technically is blocking all of her problems. They need to upgrade the CMS and IT can't and won't resource it. However, her old CMO works for a competitor and they went out to lunch last week and Rachel got told that EPAM helped her migrate to SitecoreAI and it works wonderfully and they fixed their content supply chain. 3 good people doing really good jobs. However, they're working in a system that wasn't designed for them. All right. So let's talk about how content is managed today. So you've all seen this before, but content authoring is a mix of SharePoint, Word documents, a rubbish CMS, obviously. 2 DAMs, one inherited from an acquisition 3 years ago, but nobody really knows why they've got 2. They just can't be bothered to move it and everyone moans about it. Product data in SAP. It's the one source of truth, but no one trusts it. Translation, all done by an external agency. However, they have to have Word documents and they give them a request and they get Word documents back. So it's just really poor. And in legal reviews, these are email chains with hundreds of messages going back and forth trying to approve something that takes ages. Obviously, we spoke about the CMS. It's not very, very good. And I just realised that slide's out of date. I will. And in the campaign coordination, they use a mix of Asana, Excel and Slack. So 8 tools, 6 teams, 0 shared visibility across the chain. And nobody wants to own the joins, but the joins are actually the thing that make it work. And Dan, our tech, is the guy that owns it. So Monday morning, 7th of April, 3 people, 1 campaign. No idea what's about to happen, so let's follow them. See that? We're going to start off with Maya, who's our content ops. Okay, so after checking her emails, that she can see that her 6 market campaign brief has been approved by Rachel. The team now need to write a copy for it in 5 different markets, and it's scheduled to go live in 3 weeks. The brief lives in PowerPoint, and it was updated last week. Product specs from SAP, and they're owned by the product team. Maya has a request for the product team for the product specs, but no one will send them over to her because they haven't got the right approvals, and it's taking forever. So she's got stuck in this loop. The brand guidelines are on a PDF, last updated 14 months ago. She has 23 unread emails from the weekend. 14 of them are from the translation vendor asking for the source files. She knows time is against her, so she emailed the translation company well before the brief was published or approved. However, they've obviously come back and said they only want to do the 6 markets. So now she's got to send 8 emails to the translation company saying, don't worry about them 8 markets, I only want these. She's also got to track down the source copy to send off to these markets translation. And they're all stored in Dropboxes and all other places. It's a headache and a nightmare. So her problem is that she can't actually get the data she needs when she needs it. So her day started really early, but she can't move any content forward. Then we move on to the developer, Dan. And I'm not saying he starts at 9:30, it's just a little bit later. He's been asked again and again to manually export the assets from the DAM and re-import them to the CMS. So as they have 2 DAMs, one's connected to the PIM, one's connected to the CMS, there's a legacy integration that just keeps breaking. He fixes this, and everyone will appreciate this if you've developed before, by resetting the service every morning, and then it breaks again every night. So he's in a real stuck loop because he has to keep doing the same thing. He has a theory there's too many assets. Too many assets are breaking integration and he can't get there. Now, we all know, and I'm going to call out on Pete here, if they're a content hub, he wouldn't have this problem. It would be great. But the temporary fix, as I said, he resets it. The product team the actual bug is in the product team. They have an actual fix on their Jira backlog, but they can't fix it, and it's taken 3 months. So what's happened is, and he has no visibility, so he actually has no clue that he's got his own ticket. So it's just a sprawl. He can't fix anything, no one will fix it, and he can't get the time or the budget to do it. He's had an email though from Maya about the taxonomy, and it needs an update. And the taxonomy isn't live, but it's been waiting here for months to go up as well. However, it requires 4 platforms to change. He has access to 2, which are the CMS and the DAM. The other platforms he doesn't. Management has now been CC'd in because they can't do anything and they're stuck. So she needs to update 1 term in the taxonomy. She can't do it across 4 platforms. So 1 hour and 45 minutes has gone by. Copy hasn't started. Integration is broken and has been restarted. Dan is your integration layer, and he shouldn't be the integration layer. And then we're going to talk about Rachel, who's our VP of Digital. So, end of the day, she's had a Slack from a CMO asking, what's going on with their campaign, because their nearest competitor has just released a campaign across 3 markets, full creative, 4 days, start to finish. The CMO can't believe it and finds out the competitor recently migrated to SitecoreAI. So yes, Rachel used to work for that competitor and knows all about the project. She said she'll see what she can do. Rachel opens the campaign status spreadsheet. That's great. It's 3 days out of date. No one's updated it. She hasn't got a clue where anything's going. So she has no answer for the CMO. So a whole day has been wasted by these 3 people just because of the ineffective tools and the gaps in between. But that's just not one day, that's every day. Every day, this is the headaches that people can go through, all right? It's because no one owns the joins. So let's have a look at the content supply chain. And obviously this isn't the ideal one, this is the real one for this company. So their content supply chain, every arrow is a handoff, and every arrow and every handoff is a potential gap and a break. So we have 8 tools, 6 teams, and 0 shared visibility across the chain. Content doesn't move automatically between the tools. Someone has to carry it. And when it does move, the metadata doesn't travel with it. So there's extra work that has to be done. If someone changes an entity level, a full-scale effort is required to rebuild the integrations because they fall apart. Brand rules don't travel with it either. As we said, they're over a year old. While the team internally may be using it, the translation agency might be using an old version, which means they're not following the latest brand rules, and it means it has to go back to translation again. The approval statuses, something gets approved in the CMS, will not push through to the next system. No one knows what's happening. So there's no real-time view of any piece of where the content is. And this isn't actually a technology problem, it's an architectural design problem. Nobody designed for these joins. And I really hope everyone can see that this is probably matches part of what you maybe have today, or you've had in the past, or you've seen. Companies spend a fortune on platforms and integrations, and when sometimes they have to compromise somewhere, there's no finger pointing there, that's just what happens. Teams are stretched. But what we get though is we get 3 failure modes, okay? So the first failure mode is actually the handoffs. Content stops moving because the human has to carry it to the next tool. Nobody automated the join, and that's what Dan does. The second is the context loss, metadata. approval statuses, none of it travels with the asset. Nobody knows if the right version, and that's what May has to do all day long. And the third is the governance gaps. So this is where problems surface manually and in manual files, no dashboard, she has no visibility, and that's her Monday. And where all three meet in the middle, that's the absence of an orchestration layer. The problem is, and it's always been there, and the problem is SitecoreAI, and it's the problem I feel SitecoreAI has been built to solve. These aren't technology problems, these are orchestration problems. Nice delayed message. Anyway, right, cool. So as I said in the previous one, this is moved over, we have the handoff friction. So as you can see here, the brief to the CMS, to the PIM, to the DAM, there's blocks in between, stuff's carried system to system. We then move on to the context loss. It affects the translation systems, the front end, and also the legal review. People are spending time and effort going back and forth in between systems when it's, it's just an aggravation. And the next one is the analytics and the legal governance. The governance, which is the legal review and the analytics. There's no view. No one knows what's going on. So same chain, 3 people, 3 different problems every time. Now, this isn't a Sitecore argument, all right? So the whole industry has landed here, and I won't name the names of the other vendors. Other vendors have called this out really recently, that there is a real problem that the CMS and technology isn't a constraint anymore. The orchestration layer is actually where it is. So while there is certain initiatives out in the industry that have been there for a while that have made things better, they've also created a problem. And that's a lot of tool sprawl. So someone doesn't really know where content exists unless you've got the right integrations. So there's questions you have to ask is, people want to know, where is the content, who's doing with it, and is it done? And when's it going to be ready, and where can I get it from? So, this is where AI, for me, probably makes things really possible for change, all right? So, the CMS was obviously built to manage and publish the content, not to orchestrate its movement across teams and tools and channels. That, it was never its job. And the DAM was built to store and retrieve assets, not to imply intelligence at each handoff in the lifecycle. Also never its job. So we have two nodes there, the CMS and the DAM, that are owned by the team. We have 7 nodes that are not owned by the team. And then we have 0 platforms with real-time visibility across the entire chain. So what actually happens is adding more tools makes this worse, and it adds more handoffs. The orchestration layer that's been missing will just get worse. So you can't bolt orchestration into a stack that was never designed for it. So let me show you the same day, same company, same complexity, same 3 people, but with the content supply chain actually working. 1 campaign, 1 product line, 5 markets, 0 words published. Let's fix that.
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
So this is where SitecoreAI, for me, it changes the equation. The Agentic Studio, intelligent workflows, the marketer MCP. Let me show you what they actually mean in practice. I'm not going to demo it. I'm not stupid because they go wrong. But, let's talk about their Monday morning now, okay? But obviously, yeah, so let's start off with the Agentic Studio. So for me, this is obviously the cornerstone of where Sitecore is different. Sitecore is a centralized platform here. It has a hell of a lot of stuff that's growing all the time, which is really good, and we all see the releases a lot. But this is what Vantara never had. It's a dedicated workspace with inside the one solution that can connect to other platforms. So whether they want to plan, whether they want to create a brief, execute content work, I mean, these are agents, they're not chatbots. They're built for, they're built for the work, digital workers that are built for you. They understand the goals, they make decisions, they work on the latest information, and they coordinate together to act between defined guardrails. At the moment, there's about 16 plus out-of-the-box agents, unless there's been a release today. Content generation, translation, SEO, AEO, and account enrichment are all there. They run in parallel or in sequence. Chain them together, chain them into different steps, and everything runs between your brand guidelines. And I think that's the key part for businesses, all right? These agents are not, they don't freelance. And this is where, this isn't about AI also writing your content. It's more interesting than that. It's that AI understands your brand voice, your content model, your taxonomy, and applies all of that at the point of creation. The agents are configured with context, brand guidelines, approved tone, market-specific compliance rules, product schema. The brief becomes the input. The content model is the guardrail, and may for the first time focus on the judgment, not drafting. For Vantara specifically, specs are pulled from the connected PIM. Automatically, brand guardrails are applied to anyone having to remember without anyone having to remember to apply them, and 5 market variants can be created in one operation. As you can see, May as days moved on, it took 45 minutes. That's what that means for Maya though. So where the brief used to be in PowerPoint or SharePoint, it becomes a campaign or a direct input into the Agentic Studio. Now authors, instead of writing in the CMS with no brand context loaded, they can AI can actually create content on the brand with the brand guardrails using the same content model. Tone, that's a really big problem for customers, making sure it has the right tone. Now all this stuff can be applied automatically during the generation. And as I said, the products, having to go off to PIMS and go and grab this stuff manually takes time, effort, and no one wants to do it. Imagine that automatically a product change triggers the next change in the chain. And where you've obviously then had a first draft in days, it could be ready in under an hour. So, the time saving is real. The bigger gain is the consistency here. And every output starts from an approved foundation. And I think that's what's key. Let's talk about the intelligent workflows and signals next. So for me, signals are the AI-generated market intelligence, and they're filtered by your industry. They surface before the brief is even written. It's already there. So Maya working, with a live competitive content, she can work with the latest information, not last quarter's results. She can work with the current quarters. I think a big one is also the legal reviews. So we know that's a headache for a lot of businesses. They need to make sure content's approved by the right people at the right time for the right market. Imagine now where you've got a system that knows who to talk to and when and how and get the right approvals. It can, put the right deadlines in. It can also go in there and handle everything. No email chain. Someone goes on holiday. No one forgets. It's all there. And obviously every output can carry a confidence score. We obviously see that with digital assets where they have the specials, to see about AI generation. Same with this, we can actually look through and see how confident we are within the assets that it's created, okay? So, legal and compliance can actually review it and see how confident they are that it meets the guidelines. So a product claim for Germany, for German copy will trigger a compliance check, but automatically where other markets, they're not that bothered about it, okay? The system knows what to do. So, as I said before, I've just actually been through this one. I'll go through this one really quick. This is, the before is, how maybe a legal review would have happened for most companies. It starts off with a communication as to start. They have to do all the replies. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of aggravation. It will take time and effort. When people are available, they can obviously sign it off. It comes back. Imagine a system though where the content type and the market automatically triggers and routes accordingly to what is actually being checked. They're notified the full context of what's there, the deadline, and obviously all the content attached, and they can go and see it inside their own platforms. And obviously they can then get the approvals and rejections straight away and then rework based on them changes. So what you have here, you have multiple steps, 8 steps going down to 4, loads of email threads disappearing because you have it in the platform, and then everything's audited, which is a big thing as well. All right. And then let's talk about the orchestration layer, because this is the best part really for me. So this is one that changes everything. So tools like Agentic Studio are where the supply chain can stop being a series of handoffs and become a coordinated operation. It's part of the new type for me. And this is where agents work directly on the content items, the pages, the briefs, the artifacts, CSVs, anything, products. They can process in different languages and then they can chain them together in the right sequence. Research can be taken on them items, and then it can be applied back for the next time. And then obviously you have your spaces where every team and every, in real time can see everything that's happening. They can see where everything is in the chain, who's holding things up, what they've got coming in. And obviously as of the March 30th release, which was last month, there was significantly expanded what agents can do with the content items and the multi-step workflows. So this is a brand new capability, and we're right at the start of what makes things possible. So then let's look at the content supply chains now and how a 5-market campaign might happen. This is all going to start with a brief. They've got to do the brief. They've got to talk to a copywriter. This is before. It takes time. The arrows are a bit slow, but the arrows there were flashing, showing that there's going to be a lot of time between review and copywriting. And this would all be done offline, all in different platforms. And then they've got to then trigger the translation. After all that's done, it comes back. This is then going to give you, in this case, 5 market campaigns. They then have to go off for a legal review. After all the legal review, they then can publish. So that does mean that every market can work on their own, but it does mean that changes probably in one require changes in all. That's before. Let's look at the after. So this is my representation of where I see SitecoreAI. The brief is there and it's automatically created and it's listening. And then what happens is it triggers a translation job. The translation job triggers the human review. And before you know it, each market can work independently and be triggered. So what you now have is you have a system that's taking days that goes down to hours, because this system can work as something's ready, it will trigger the next stage at approval. And then let's talk about the chain as well. So In this case, this is if there was a product data change. So now, I already said, it takes time, effort, they have no access. The product data's changed, it's taking forever to get any changes back before they can even create the brief. So now they know when they've got the brief, they can then create what they need to do for the copywriters. As you can see, this is the back and forth. It takes more time because what they're doing is their copywriter might write it without brand context. Hopefully they won't, but you never know. And then when it's reviewed, there's that massive email chain. And then it goes off to translation again. But as you can see here, it's all time. Everything's just taking time and effort, and it requires someone like Maya to understand where everything is in the step. You know, if she goes on holiday, the company falls apart on that area. And everything then has to be re-imported back to the system because it's all manual. But imagine where Agentic Studio could be there. So we've actually got a PIM trigger here. The PIM trigger detects the product change and automatically triggers the brief agent, which then triggers a content agent that then goes to translation automatically, knowing what needs to be done. The yellow box is a slow one. I've done it quick, but that will be the legal part. The legal teams need to check it. But you can see here the handoffs there and the time it's taken. In the first one, you've got 6 humans in the chain. In the last one, you could have 1. That one person, because everything's been preset and coded, it can then take it all for publication. So where a campaign would take days, it can now take hours. And obviously the big part is visibility. So I've said it before, you know, Rachel, you know, she doesn't have to ask Maya for a status update. She can go and see a dashboard. You can have your dashboards built. And even if you use other dashboard tools, the data can be fed in from Sitecore into it. So the campaign space for me will give her that real-time visibility of where she can actually see all the activate, you know, what's actively done, where the workflows are, where things are held, what's going on, what artifacts are done, what's ready, what she can go and check, who she needs to go and ask. And then obviously the confidence scores. So when that CMO rings her up or sends her a Slack message at the end of the day and says, what's going on? She can say, just go and look in Sitecore. And I think that's the big part here, it's visibility. And I think that's the big part where technology for me has evolved so rapidly over the last few years. We're now getting to a stage where technology isn't the barrier anymore. It's now the processes that need to change. However, everyone will say you can build everything with a prompt now. And obviously before everyone, you know, goes back to their organization and says, yeah, we'll just use AI. And, you know, if you use, everyone uses AI, don't, you know, no one lie here, everyone uses it. But what you're going to get is like the Homer car in The Simpsons, you know, and this is where, you know, anyone can build with a prompt. And in this case, you know, it removes the barrier to starting. You can go and ask what you want. The Homer car, for anyone that hasn't seen the episode, was where his brother owned a car company. He basically said, he basically put in all this stuff, you know, let's be honest, everyone wants 15 cup holders and a dome for the kids to sit at the back and see. It's great. But the car, it didn't work. And I think that's the key part, is that in this case, you know, if this was real, he would have bankrupted his brother's company because the car wouldn't have sold. It was the everyman car, but no one would have bought it because it's horrible. And that's exactly where, where AI is at the minute. It does accelerate you a lot. However, if you are in a mess, it's going to accelerate you into a bigger mess very, very quickly. So garbage in, garbage out has never been more relevant. And obviously it amplifies what's underneath. So if your underneath is broken, AI is going to break it a hell of a lot quicker. And obviously, yeah, this one, with great power comes great responsibility, because I think that's a big thing that a lot of people are going to find out soon when they release their code. And obviously, here's what it looks like in practice. So I think having the foundation, this one here is that even if you put AI in, you know, your foundation's key, because AI will generate and it will do what you tell it to do. And it will go, and it's very clever. However, if you're telling it the wrong things, it doesn't have the right information, it's going to build the wrong stuff. So I think the key part is that if your foundation is weak as a company, you need to strengthen it up or you need to improve it. And there's no reason why you can't improve parts of it, but be mindful that it's not the silver bullet that's going to solve everything, okay? So I say, you know, each market, something in Germany for regulatory approval is going to be different to something in the FDA for America. It's very different, all right? So you have to, you know, and that causes a lot of problems with platforms, let's say, or solutions that will go out there and try and solve every problem in one go, all right? So this is what it is. Right, now let's talk about Dan. So Dan is, you know, this section is for the developers in the room. You know, if you're not a developer, stay with me for a minute because it's also going to apply to you guys as well. But I told you what's possible for the developers. There's AI, there's all these other tools. But now things have sort of changed. And to be honest, I only recently used, it was actually after the London user group when everyone was talking a couple of weeks ago about the Marketer MCP. I've not had time to use it. So it was only recently when I got the call to say I was speaking, I was like, I better do a presentation. And then I started looking at it and I was like, wow, this thing's really good. So anyone here can obviously use it with your own tools, all right, which is really good. I'm not giving you a demo. There's a link in a minute. You can go and get it as a QR code. Go and have a go with it. But basically, imagine that each role might use the tools in different way. So with the content editors and obviously the VPs and the digital ones that have all these great ideas, they might use Claude. You know, that's what they're using as their tool of choice. Obviously, with a developer, they're going to use an IDE. I put Visual Studio Code in for obvious reasons, because most probably have used it. And then I've put this one here. I mean, this could be Cursor or any tool. These are our own tools we use at EPAM. All of our development teams use all these tools behind the scenes. We have a whole AI backbone that sits there. So I've put these in for obvious reasons, because that's what I would talk to and I would use. But we're all using different tools and different ways to talk to different platforms to accomplish. Now, obviously, the outcome's there, which is SitecoreAI. However, this is where the market MCP sits in the middle. So actually what you're getting is you're getting all these different connections can now talk to it. I say, you know, am I going to use the market MCP to go and create pages? No, because I don't create pages. However, someone might. So I might say, you know, go and put a prompt in there and go and build me a page doing this. It's really, you know, it's really clever. And obviously the next slide here is to talk about that. You know, and this is where, you know, I set out with Claude, for instance. You know, you can go in there, you set the connector up, you go and authorize it, and then you go in there and basically said, you know, I was just querying the content tree and saying, tell me about this page, tell me, go and find this page. It's, you know, it's scary how good this thing actually was, if I'm honest. For me, I was actually like, okay, that was impressive. I'm used to going in the platform just doing it. So yeah, for me, I was very impressed. But obviously everything's logged, and obviously you're knowing that everyone's using the right APIs behind the scenes. It's all connecting to them. All right. So now, obviously, what can happen now here is that, you know, where before our developer might have got a Slack message, you know, saying that he needs to go and create some content or help with some content that's not publishing or something or other with Singapore. You know, before it would have meant manual work. You'd have to go in there, change the variants, find out why it's not publishing, go in, make different changes, and he's become a bottleneck. Whereafter, you know, he can actually just go into Claude or into whatever tool he wants to use and say to it, I need to go and fix this page, there's a problem with it, go and do this. In natural language, it will go and talk to the MCP and it will go and do it. So the total time here is, you know, really reduced, because you can go from hours of messing around trying to work out why something's not working to just talking to the agent. It goes off and does it, comes back and says it's done, then you can go and get on with something else. So there's a massive shift for me in the momentum of how people are working and operating. So obviously, here's the same Monday, the same company, the same complexity, the same 3 people with a different supply chain. So here we've got 7:45 in the morning, the brief created in SitecoreAI, signals surface 3 competitor moves from the last week, and her brief is enriched, Maya's brief is enriched with all of that without her writing a single word. She checks it, reviews it. 8:30, the AI generates the copy across the 5 markets with brand guardrails. The product specs are pulled automatically from the PIM. No SAP access is required, no email to Dan because nothing's broken. 9:15, the agent chain is running. Translation across 14 language variants are in progress. Legal is auto notified on the product claims. There's no email thread, no copies, no follow-up. They work on it inside the platform or inside their own tools. 11 o'clock, Dan receives a Slack about the Singapore section. He talks to Claude, it fixes the problem. 1:30, 3 markets are live, 2 are in the final legal review. Everything is visible. Everyone can see what markets are live and what's not. No one has to ring anyone. No one has to basically piss anyone off. Same Monday, different supply chain. One of the bits here, obviously, this is, you know, I'm not saying about the company, but, you know, let's measure the supply chain. You can go from hours to days, multiple people doing redundant jobs to one job, automatic visibility, and loads of threads down to one workflow. So it can be a very, very different supply chain. Okay. Right, I'm getting to the end. I've obviously gone a lot quicker than I should be, so it's fine. You can have a coffee. But there's 3 things I feel you should probably go and do before you leave the room, and do them this week or next, not in the next quarter. So go and map your content supply chain. You know, draw every tool, every team, every handoff. You know, don't worry that you're going to piss someone off if you're asking what they do for a job or what their tool does. Go and ask it and find out. You know, go and find the worst ones. What are the worst ones that are stopping content from moving, or, you know, information from moving between systems? What's breaking and causing the developers hell? And then ask, you know, and if no one owns it, great, shut it down until someone moans. I'm joking, obviously don't shut it down. This exercise will take a few hours at most to get the first picture. But, you know, this is where, you know, them hours will be well spent in obviously understanding how your actual flow is there. You know, and if you don't know what's wrong, how are you going to fix it? All right. Find one workflow where an agent can come in and get rid of a human bottleneck, basically. You know, don't try and automate everything in one go because it's going to go wrong. You know, pick one thing and make it work properly. Good candidates will be your legal routing, you know, translation triggering, market variations, approval notifications. Go and do something that just stops a job from being a pain for someone. The test is simple. If a human's doing it and it's rule based, then you could probably go and do that one quite quickly as an agent. All right. And then build something small, run it alongside a manual process first, validate that it's working, and then retire the step as you need to. And I'm not saying replace everything with agents, it's just that there's probably ones that people don't really want to be doing, they've just got stuck doing it. And obviously a single well-designed agent will do more for your team's confidence in AI than hundreds of demos of agents that then fall apart. Yeah, start small. And then if you're going to go and do it, I had the QR code, I haven't got it on this one, but go and connect up Claude Code. Go and, you can do it in Claude, you can do it in VS Code, you can do it in Cursor. There's other AI specialists that are here, and I'm not going to point to him, but go and talk to him, he's really good at it. Start with something low risk, as I say, scaffold a new page, build a new component, localize a piece of content, go and convert something, go and try it out and see what it does. And then you can obviously feel the difference in, what you describe with that versus going to spend ages in a CMS interface. It's probably not needed. And then just try and wow the team. The same thing, start small, make it real, and then it will grow, all right? So same market, same complexity, different supply chain, all right? This is not about replacing your entire stack or not even replacing people. This is about getting rid of the tasks they shouldn't be doing, all right? And this is also, not that we're probably going to see them anymore, this is not a 3-year transformation project, Who's going to wait 3 years now for a CMS or something to be done? No one needs to anymore. So before you leave with the 3 actions, I want to just go through how we work at EPAM and extending the SiteCore platform. All right. So this one here is, everyone's seen it. Everyone's got their own versions. Anyone on the partners, I'm sure you got your own one. It's just a different phone, different systems. But SitecoreAI sits in the middle, connects to your platforms, and it consumes stuff, it publishes and pushes stuff out. It's really simple, all right? So, and obviously what we do at EPAM is actually we build upon it. So what I've spoken to you here about is the content supply chain, but I'm going to introduce something to you now called Max. This one was presented at Symposium. I've got a nice new video in a second, it's really loud. But basically what Max is, our orchestration layer, it actually sits above the CMS. So as much as SitecoreAI can sit there and it can work inside the platform and it can do some great stuff with agents, imagine what's outside your platform. Imagine everything that's not to do with content and could be to do with products or 15 other different platforms. This is where Max is the framework that we've built at EPAM that sits there and can sit around. And I mean, this is what I'm going to show you on the next slide. It was the first slide I ever saw about Max. And this is the one part before Symposium where I was sold on this is the future of where people are. And I can give you a brief case study that's not in here, but I'll talk about it quick. But it's all about the signals and trends. So imagine in your market, you could understand what was happening before it's even happened. So EPAM works with a really European cosmetics brand, for instance, okay? They publish stuff to Meta. And one day it was a skincare ad and it was a shoulder, basically the shoulder of a model. And Meta blocked it and said, no. No reason why, just no, you've got a mark. Now, I didn't know this, but you can get 3 marks. If you get 3 marks, you're banned. You cannot post on any Meta platform after that, you're done as that brand. They came to us as a long-term customer and said, EPAM, what do we do? So we did an AI readiness check and we built an agent that sits there, understands the Meta guidelines, understands all the things that are happening. And then now anything that gets published or before it gets published, it goes off to the checker, it goes and gives a risk rating and goes and checks it. This process here is exactly the same. So we can actually now, and they've had in the last year, they've had no marks back and they're very happy because they can now make a lot of money from Meta advertising. But what happens here is that it's the moments and trends. Imagine you're on social media. So everyone here is at SUGCON. If you start posting, imagine that Max could sit there and see the SUGCON tags and then email the Thomas and all the other organisers from SUGCON and say, oh, there's something going on. There's a really good session going on in Edward 3 and 4 about content supply chain. That could be the signal that goes and creates content automatically for your downstream channels. So this is the big part of what Max is as a platform. It can look outside the CMS, the DAM, and all these other platforms. And over to the video before I do some questions. So,
today's content landscape moves faster than ever. Trends shift, channels multiply, complexity grows. But what if your entire content ecosystem worked together as one? Meet Max, the multi-agent execution framework, a connected ecosystem that unifies your content supply chain from insight to creation, activation to optimization, so your teams can create real value. Let's see Max in action. Shine is a healthcare brand always looking for new ways to connect. Max triggers the signals and trends agent to start listening and spots a growing conversation about preventative wellness. The brand relevance agent checks. Does it align with Shine's mission, tone, and values? It does. A campaign opportunity is flagged and approved by the team. Inside SitecoreAI, a new project takes shape. A brief is generated, and tasks are assigned. Search looks in Content Hub for existing assets, and new assets are generated to fill any gaps. The creative ideation agent brings it all together. Storyboards, copy, visuals, all on brand. Synthetic Audiences tests the campaign with real-world brand-relevant personas, and their feedback flows instantly into the workflow. Then the creative and marketing teams review, refine, and approve. The idea becomes a campaign. The compliance checker runs every asset through brand and regulatory standards and sends it for final human approval. Approved, ready to go. The campaign is sent to agents for digital channels, with Gradial handling the web release. Gradial's governance checker ensures the content is compliant and optimized before it goes live. Insights agents monitor the performance of the campaign and identify any content optimizations that can be updated with Gradial. From the first signal to measurable impact, Max delivers more than connection. It breaks silos and streamlines workflows to create a closed-loop, integrated ecosystem. A framework that lets agents communicate, stay in sync, and drive better results together. The result is smarter, faster content, powered by scalable operations that deliver real speed to market. Transform your content supply chain today.
Cool. Right, I will go on to questions in a second, but I'll do this one first. Thank you to the sponsors for SUGCON. Obviously, I know the American Eagle guys are in the room. Thank you for sponsoring the room, and obviously all the other sponsors. So yeah, it's really, really good. But yeah, any questions?
Thank you, Timothy. We have plenty of time for some questions. Anyone?
So on the strategy tab, it almost looked like MRM features. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, I would say there's MRM features there.
And how do you compare them to the MRM features in Content Hub, or are they those interfaced into the platform?
I mean, I know, Pete, you're putting me in a very dangerous, trappy situation, but they are different. But they had to get the idea from somewhere, I think I'll say. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I think the ecosystem of Sitecore is, it's evolving. Let's just say. So I do think, as I know some of the team is here, Content Hub is definitely the best product you've got for me because it solves problems. But then SitecoreAI is evolving as well. I think it's getting there. A lot of the good stuff that's in AI at the minute has come from somewhere, whether that was XP, other platforms inside the stack like CVP, personalized. It's all growing. For me, yeah, it's very similar to MRM, but it's an improved version of MRM, especially with the whole the intelligence behind the scenes. For me,
Cool, good to see.
Has this on?
Thank you. You mentioned that we should now go ahead, or some person should go ahead and actually analyze the content supply chain. Which of these three, is it one of these three people? Is it Dan or is it someone else?
no, it's a collective. I think it's a collective. I think it would be more than the three. I mean, I've put three in the talk. There's obviously a lot more people in any organisation. I mean, someone has to own it. Someone has to be the product owner of that, or someone will be the product owner. I would say that they're going to come at it from different angles. So something I would come at it from a technology angle. Teams that we work with at EPAM will come from the authoring side and come from the content production side. Other teams will come from the management and how much it's going to cost. So I think there's always it needs to be a collective of a group. But I think you have to be mindful that every tool should be challenged. I think that's the key part. And it's not that you don't dislike a tool, it's that you have to challenge what they're doing because you may find you've got duplicate functionality. So I think for me, content supply chain, it's great having all these tools, but some of them do very similar jobs, like Content Hub and SitecoreAI with MRM. That's it.
Thank you. So with our existing clients, we've done proof of concepts, demos, we've outlined, we've done audits in the content supply chain and everything else. But there's still a lot of inertia and resistance for large marketing teams to overcome moving from emails and spreadsheets and everything else. Do you have a way or an approach to get over that hurdle?
I think it takes. There's an honest answer and there's probably a better one. People are resistant to change. People are used to their jobs. I mean, I really quick. I remember 8 or so years ago. I remember going to a client. making a joke at the customer about, oh yeah, I bet you store it all manually on paper inside the depots. And he went, yeah, we do. We have a Rolodex. And I burst out laughing and was like, oh my God. But even back then, they weren't even on a spreadsheet. So I think there's and actually probably people aren't even sure what a Rolodex is. My dad used to have one. But yeah, there's a big, I think with every company's different. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to show them the results. I mean, I think now, especially with like stuff like MCP and stuff, and AI in general, you can show stuff so rapid. You can just go and ask. It's dangerous, obviously. You can just go and ask Claude or Cursor and say, "Go and build me that." And it's great, and then it breaks, and then you think, "What the hell's broken?" You've got to go and ask it another question or whatever. But it's really good for rapid prototyping. I think if you've got an idea, I think you have to try and. I think there's a piecemeal approach. I think if you go in there head on and try and say to a company, "You're changing," you're going to get so much resistance. I mean, I can say it, I won't say the name, but I mean, I was at an event the other night with a customer and one of the guys turned around and went, oh yeah, you know, you guys just stealing my job. And it's like, no, we're not. We're evolving your job. You're working on a platform that was built 30 years ago. We need to change. And he's warming up, but it's hard work where people, they get resistant, they get worried that, and I don't think it's that at all. I don't think AI is about replacing people. I think it's about making the job. I mean, years ago, I worked with a car company and they used to do all the adverts online and all the brochures. And someone would have to physically go in there and retouch the cars every single time and they have to check it. Who wants to do that? No one. I mean, maybe someone does, but I wouldn't. So I think there's a lot of jobs that can evolve. And I think you'll see that over the next few years. Jobs will evolve. You can do stuff more rapid. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Timothy. Let's give Timothy a round of applause.